Hello and welcome back to this Supero podcast.
Hello.
Where we're looking at the role of AI in the GTM, in your go-to-market. And last week if you joined us, we looked at AI. Sounds like Big Ben. We looked at
it's on my end.
We looked at, hey, that's the beauty of going live. We have these unforeseen things that hit us. Last week we looked at AI as it relates to the exit. If you're a private equity company that has a portfolio of businesses, looking at the value of AI within your organization, is critical now that we think that, or now that we look at the fact that financial engineering is more and more difficult for private equity companies to do, and therefore the focus or the value driver for PE firms and their operating partners is looking at the revenue engine and the CRO. So here's where we're starting today. So your dashboards have never looked greener. Activity is up. Follow-ups are faster. The AI is humming. So why does the value keep leaking? Do you know where the value is leaking? Smaller deals, thinner margin, a forecast you can't quite defend. And that gap between what your AI shows you and what's actually happening to enterprise value is what today's discussion is all about. So quick catch up for anyone who missed last week's episode. The picture we use for how AI is showing up in our business is based on the time when the car replaced the horse and carriage. The human is the horse, AI is the car. And most revenue leaders are driving a fast car down a dirt road built for a horse. So there are three lenses on that problem, and the three of us each hold one. So the first is the revenue engine, that's me. The second is the infrastructure and data that fuels it, that's Cumai. Hello, Cumai. And the regulatory governance around it, and that's Iga.
Hi.
The reason it matters now is that for a decade, private equity made returns by financial engineering, as I mentioned earlier, cheap debt, expand the multiple, and those days are over. The commercial engine is the real value lever now, which puts every revenue leader at the center of the value story. So last time we went deep on one use case. Using AI to understand the emotions of your reps when coaching. And as we established, that's prohibited according to the EU AI Act. Today we discuss two more, but before we go into those, I just want to give a quick intro or re-intro to Cumai, who has 20 plus years in tech infrastructure transformations in both a B2C and a B2B context, working with AI for how many years now, Cumai?
Since 2016.
Okay.
So it's almost 10 years. Yeah.
So a long time.
Yeah.
And Iga, who is a professional in the AI EU Act, I would say an expert. And you've been working with AI for how long, Iga?
It's probably coming up to 5 years. So I had been solely working on the GDPR to start, then FCA handbook and how the two mix. And then naturally, AI governance got attached to it because it sits within that data governance tech side of things. So from the moment the LLMs exploded, that kind of became my part.
Yeah. Good. And your experience, both of your experience, is very much, let's say, horizontal. So not
Absolutely.
industry
Yeah.
or area specific, let's say, but for today's discussion, we're very much looking at the go-to-market strategy and the role of AI in as a revenue lever. So the first use case. So same as last time, the last episode, I'm playing the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. My AI is optimizing for activity, more touches, faster follow-up, more emails out the door, and every dashboard is looking greener than the last quarter. On paper, it really feels like I'm winning. Now let's look at this from two perspectives. The first is, a lot of how we're using AI is in the hands of my sales team. I advocate the use of AI. I expect our sales team to be more productive when using it, because I can't tell you how many times my sellers tell me that they have no time to update the CRM, for example. And I think that's where most sales teams are today. So when we think about the implications of that and the risk of revenue leakage or pipeline leakage, let's look at this from an infrastructure perspective first. What are the implications from an infrastructure perspective initially when we think about the fact that the sales organization is let loose on using the chosen LLM from an organization perspective, but they're using it as individuals?
Okay, I'll start with this. I think the issue is the way we are approaching, like, okay, at a sudden we have that superpower. We have again, to your point about filling the CRM data, like asking people to fill CRM data, I think this was one of the main barrier of in front of any deployment of CRM. Okay, beautiful systems we have, but no one is ready to go and spend time filling all these records. Now we can see AI is handling this job very easily and smartly, and we have beautiful records. Everything is there. It looks that we have a lot of beautiful data, but the problem is, do the human, like sales or managers, or are they checking what's there in these records? They still have the same old tendency to that no one like to spend their time filling records, and now no one want to spend time reading these records and making sure the quality of these records are correct. So there is no oversight by human, and I think this is the crucial. So we have a lot of data generated by AI. It could be good. We cannot tell like what quality, what's the rate of this quality. We cannot rate it, but eventually the amount of data going there is growing very fast, because one of the main nature of this new thing, this AI thing, is the speed. It's like it can do things at light speed. It's much faster than us. So we end up with tons of data. We end up with a lot of leads to follow. Now, when we start nurturing these leads and following up with these leads, this is where we start investing human hours, where we start investing our team efforts, other teams' efforts. This is where the leak of the value, I think, initiated, because we are not sure that out of the 1,000 leads we have, what's the percentage of good leads or prospects, or we don't. We have to follow up on all of them, and this is a lot of time to invest, and no one can tell if this time is invested in the right place or it's a waste. So
Yeah.
I think like we need to be able to answer the question, like, do I know the quality of the data in my system? Okay, my system is enabling me to fill this data, but do I have any control on this data? I think this is a very good question to answer by CROs or sales managers.
Yeah, I think on the topic of leads, I'm imagining sort of two use cases. The first of which is what role is AI playing to enhance the data that we have on a particular lead? So you might have, let's say, first-party data or internal data that is being used, but often companies would apply third-party data to a particular lead to better understand that company or the people within that company, depending on the GDPR or what region we're talking about. And then the other use case is the scoring. And so perhaps some of that data that is being attributed to those leads helps to influence the scoring, the lead scoring. So with those two use cases in mind, where do you see, and with the same question in mind that I asked at the beginning, individual sellers, could be business development reps or sales development reps that are using this data. What are the implications of the sellers or the business development reps, using the LLM to fulfill those two use cases? And both from an infrastructure and a compliance perspective, I guess. But and if I take a step back, we've got, it depends on the scale as well. So if we've got an organization that has thousands of leads coming in, then that judgment needs to sit at a system level. But if we've got an organization that has leads coming in that is manageable by a sales team, let's say it's more of a mid-market or an enterprise sale, where the deal value warrants, human in the loop, early on. I guess, Cumai, let's look at that from a scale and system perspective first.
I think let's take the scoring.
Yeah.
When we score these, I'll take this. I like energies. I'll take this. Imagine if you, the CRO, you are sitting in your private jet somewhere, okay, and the pilot inside the cockpit, they have no gauge. All their metrics are like black. They see nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, IGA is sitting in the airport tower down there to make sure you are following the correct track. Okay, and suddenly you moved out of the right track. Now, who will answer at this point? Like when IGA will flag it, there is an issue. You will ask your pilot why. They will tell you, we don't know. We are not able to see anything. So it's autopiloted, and this is how it's going. And this, I think, the big issue when I go with ready, like I don't start I deploy ready solutions or solutions from the market. They are beautiful solutions in the market, by the way. I don't think any one of us against deploying these, but I think there's a missed step before this deployment. Every business is out of being under pressure to deploy AI as soon as possible, blah blah blah, to show some record. For any reason, everyone is rushing to deploying AI without design, and this is, I think, so when I say I have scoring for my leads are scored, I need to answer how these scores are mathematically how these scores are generated. And to do that, I take a step back. Okay, from the beginning, why I deployed technology in my business. I think this is where we should start.
Yeah.
Technology should not be deployed just for the sake of technology. There should be a reason. And to identify that reason, we need to do diagnosis. Okay, do we need this technology or not? And once we initiate the design process, I think this is where we make sure that all the answers we talk about, like explainability, responsibility, all these like later answers will be by design from day one. And I think even for the regulation and compliance, it should be by design. And I think this here I will give it to Iga maybe to highlight more how if we have compliance and regulation by design from day one, how this will help to avoid many issues later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, retrofitting compliance is always the most expensive way of doing things, because we either tangle ourselves into processes and systems which were complicated and expensive to set up, and then they make certain compliance initiatives impossible or very difficult. So you need to be going back and untangling all of it. And especially in AI governance world, governance starts with data. Before anything else is being utilized, whether you're developing a system or deploying it, you need to be able to give good foundations for what you're going to do. Your scoring system will be only as good as the data that informs it. So you may as well do the right thing and start from the beginning, and ensuring that data is clean and informative and non-biased. And these are all big words and very big buzzwords within the industry. But there are plenty of tools that help people deal with data. And it's from a Word document, called data sheets, that has been put together by very clever scientists who are looking to standardize the approach to data that sits within the AI world, because in their view, nothing, why we can't have a list of ingredients just like we have list of ingredients on food products, which in a very clear way explain to the users everything that they need to know about data to feel comfortable that the data is not biased, that it's been cleaned, that it's been looked at, and so on. So, these are all working documents that you start with, or if you're a big enterprise, there are obviously automated tools that help you do that.
Yeah, and I guess the fact of the matter is, whether it's from an infrastructure perspective or a compliance perspective, the buck stops with me as the revenue leader when it comes down to how AI is used across the let's say the revenue operating model, whether it's marketing, sales, or customer success. And I do feel like as revenue leaders, we need to leverage some of that system thinking when it comes to individual sales people and the teams, the sales organization and the customer success organization, because I can't help but think, when we now look at this less from let's say a lead perspective and more as a sales deal management perspective, you've got sellers uploading documents, let's say the logic, whatever logic they might be using, whether it's to create an account plan or to create some insight based on some research they've done with a particular account or person. Each seller is using this LLM, perhaps sharing their value logic with the Frontier Lab.
I think sorry if I interrupt you, but
please,
because I hear you say, in your words, you said create, research. These words I think we need to spot them, because when we say create, they created these accounts or AI created, or so it's created or generated. The research, did they handle the research themselves, or it was just a short prompt to an LLM, and we got a document no one read, and we just put it as a research? So I think now we need to be more aware of most of these activities are happening not by human, but it's by AI. And this is where there's a huge space for liability at certain point, especially at exit, if I am not controlling all the. Imagine I have hundreds of accounts created, but no one can tell how these accounts or research are done. Now, when it comes, time comes to exit, and the audit comes from outside, from third party, this is where they will start digging, and they will find a lot of things. They will raise questions.
Yeah.
And I don't know how these company or this organization will be able to answer these questions. Maybe you can press more on it, Iga.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, before you do, Iga, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I want to jump in here, because I think we're touching on a point that is, I'd say, at the heart of the challenge that the chief revenue officers and now private equity companies want to solve. Because when we think about the go-to-market strategy, and let's say the frameworks that are being used by a revenue leader across his organization to provide some governance as it relates to what the sales org is doing, what the customer success team is doing, conversations that they're having with customers and prospects. There's let's say there's that sort of those frameworks and that thinking, the logic within those frameworks. Yes, there's an enablement piece as it relates to helping sales people perform better, but what's the role of infrastructure when we think about scaling that approach? A high tide raises all boats kind of visual. And what knowledge is being leveraged from that organization across various silos to ensure that those frameworks and the use cases within those frameworks are being implemented, leveraged as effectively as possible, both by sales and sales leadership.
I think
Go on, Cumai.
Well, and bringing the three things together, that what I just described with the infrastructure and the compliance, so that an organization has those three lenses coming together to really create an environment that empowers far better performance.
I mean, you can't just get away with governance, and it's even on the GDPR level, whether you're in the UK or in the European Union, because any data generated, whatever data you feed into those lead scoring systems, there will be certain inferences drawn by the system, and those inferences must be explainable but also accurate, because if you don't hold accurate data on people and you're 100% convinced that someone really wants to hear from you, but they don't want to hear from you, and that's going to come back because they'll complain. If it's one or two complaints, you can deal with this and apologize and explain. But with AI, it's all about scalability. So if that scales and that comes back to bite at scale, because there was a problem with the data and problem with inference that had consequences for people just being annoyed that this company keeps contacting them where they just not interested, they will complain. And if you have hundreds of those complaints, that's going to put a huge strain on your organization and your revenue. And at exit, it would be a disaster, because you're all of a sudden, painting a picture of this wonderful cohort of leads that actually turns out to be extremely vacuous, because people will get very annoyed that the company got their intentions wrong. And that is so easily done if you don't have those controls early on when it comes to data, but then also to systems. And the compliance, or governance, as we prefer to call it, because it's more positive. Compliance is annoying to people, and governance is just this thing that is good to have. It also involves monitoring. So you need to be able to monitor every single case, and obviously with AI, it can be done at scale. And then you can make informed decisions whether your leads are of the good quality.
Yeah.
And I think here, when we talk about monitoring, now the issue is not the deployment of AI, I think, but the issue is deploying AI in one side of the business, not because I can apply AI to handle a lot of monitoring, okay? And to help human to identify issues and flag any compliance issues at early stage. So the thing is not, the issue is not in the deployment of AI. The issue is in the way we deploy AI, and no one should think or understand us wrongly that this talk is against the use of AI, but it's against tying this super speed engine to one of your tire, and the rest of the tires are still connected to the older engine. So you will have one tire spinning, and the car is not moving at a higher speed. So you need this engine to be connected to all your functions, to all your organization, not to one single area.
Yeah, and it's as I now think about, my team is getting more familiar with AI. I feel more confident that we need to take the next step. Now let's look at this point through a different perspective, a different lens. I'm about to embark on a transformation. I really want to go deep on AI and have multiple agents running, doing various jobs across my go-to-market strategy to ensure that I'm performing. The team is performing as best as they can. And we're thinking about all facets in terms of the revenue, the go-to-market strategy, the frameworks, the infrastructure, the compliance, the governance. Then where do we start? Where do we start? Do we just hire a team and figure it out for ourselves, or
diagnosis? Diagnosis.
Right. Right. No. So seriously, doing an internal diagnostic. So what, why would a company do that? Because most revenue leaders, they start at an organization and they've got their old playbook, and some might diagnose. So I don't want to be unfair to those that do, but for many, they start and they start implementing. When we think about the diagnostic, as you mentioned there, Cumai, to talk to us a bit more about that.
I'll try to, it's exactly like what you do when you go to a GP or to facilities. No one starts by giving you medicine. No one starts by giving you treatment. They start with diagnostic, and I think this is very important. And doing your diagnostic internally, sitting with it. Okay, this might give an idea, but if you bring if you bring an extra like external eye on board, I think this will help discover a lot of things you never noticed, never know, and you might be surprised with the diagnostic and the possible solutions. So start with the diagnostic, then I think next session we'll talk about design more. I don't know if you have anything to add, Iga, on the same.
I mean, diagnostic is everything, because we mentioned it before, it's not a technology project, it's a business strategy project. So once you put data on a spreadsheet or on a whiteboard, you get insights into your business that you haven't even thought of before. So if you're able to if you're a smaller organization, you may as well be able to do it yourself and have that. However, having that third-party view is very, very beneficial, because sometimes when we get too close to our business, there are things that we're just unable to see, and it's no matter what you do in lab, this is true. So bouncing ideas of people is important. But if you start solving problems that don't exist, or start matching the tool start matching the problems to the tool, that's when you're losing your return on investment fully. So it's worth taking a step back.
Yeah, and I'm conscious of time. I think in a future session we can go a bit deeper on, what a diagnostic might look like, in this context. And I'm also conscious that we didn't get to the next use case, which is forecasting. So, and that's quite a big topic. So let's save that for next time. Are there any closing points that either of you would like to make?
Okay.
Go on, Cumai. Go on.
For me, we human, we have the tendency to solve issues by creating another issue, and then we start finding a solution for the new one. So we are creating the future issues. I think it's with the help of AI, it's a good time to stop doing so and hold the horses, take a step back, identify the problem correctly, and identify a way to solve it without creating another problem. Do you?
Okay.
I absolutely agree. I just think I wanted to mention to our viewers that if you have any questions that you would like to have answered in those sessions, we would be very happy to do that. So you can drop us a comment or a message, and we surely pick up on it.
Totally. And I guess from a practical perspective, what one thing our viewers can do this week is, don't try to fix everything. Just pick one AI influenced decision that's happening in your revenue engine right now. It could be a lead score, it could be forecasting, it could be account planning that we mentioned earlier. And whoever's responsible for that, ask them, can they explain the logic behind it? Perhaps whiteboard it, and that might lead you to a place where you've got more questions, and the three of us would welcome the opportunity to discuss it. Maybe even have you on the podcast next time. So yeah, I think from us.
That's a great idea.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think from all of us, from me, from Cumai, from Iga, thanks for watching. And sounds like we'll be doing another one of these. So look out for the next episode.
Brilliant.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.